This is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching, where homemade at home rules. Today's video is related to paper foundation piecing, and it's using adding machine tape. That looks like a roll of toilet paper, but believe me, I really mean adding machine tape. The topic of quilting is not simple. You just don't look up one thing and then you've got it all mastered. And I'm finding that out. Like the last thing that I did was on paper piecing. And then all of a sudden I found out, oh, there's this nice adding machine tape and you can use it as part of your paper foundation piecing. So I said, okay, I'm going to take that and do it and see if I like it. And here's what I found out. It actually is a lot of fun, and it's a great way to use up scraps and specialty fabrics. And everybody's got a system, and my system is just to take and have a basket full of pieces, and you can see some of my strips right here that are left over from other quilts. And then periodically I can just take and see what I can get out of them. 3.5 squares, 4-inch squares. I've got some buckets with 2-inch squares, and then I have a bucket that just keeps novelty. These are a couple of those. So you're going to need your scraps to do this. And then the next thing you need is the machine tape. And I happen to have a roll, I bet it was 20 years old, left from my dad's adding machine, a little roll with 2 1/4 inch, 2 1/4. And that was a great one to start with. So that's what I started with. Well, I actually started to use it up and decided I think I'll go find some more tape. And so just pricing them around and then going to the closest office store, I found that I could get 10 rolls of 3-inch for about $19. And that's a lot of tape if you really get into this. But then you do some nice long strips. So last weekend when I was making the ones on the 2 1/4, I said I'm going to see what I can do, and I just did all of these strips. And then I took mine, I just hung up on a hanger and put how long each one was and what its width was, and these were all 2 1/4. And I said, okay, that's great. I said, but now, if I don't have anything to do with these, this is not going to be worth very much, except you can see the cute patterns and different fabrics. And that was one of the fun things, was to see some of the fabrics that I've used in the past, and especially have fun with some of the novelty fabrics, because some of those I'll even fussy cut to put in here so that the rabbits go in the right direction or something if it's needed to be needed. So then I said this weekend, okay, what can I do with these? Well, one of the first things I thought about was maybe using it for binding. And so I had a piece that I had hand stitched many, many years ago, but I had saved it. I didn't know what to do with it, and I just had pieces, so I put those pieces together, and I took that 2 1/4, which is narrow for making a binding, because I like to do the French double fold. And I tried it, and it turned out kind of cute. That's the front, and there's the back, and then I'm going to go back and do some more quilting on it later, but I just wanted to get this piece set. Now the thing is, you do have seams and the heavy seams in there, so as I was going along I would mash down where the seams came, like there you can see one, and there you can see one, and then it still did pretty good. So that got me warmed up, and finally I said, okay, now I got an idea. I'm going to take my strips, and I'm going to make something, and I don't know what it's going to turn out to be. And what it actually has turned out to be is going to be a table runner. And it was so cute, because I just took those 2 1/4 strips, and I put a 3-inch strip in between them, and then put little caps on the end, which were about 3 inches. And now I've got it ready to put the back on and to get it quilted. So, and my kids loved it, so that was really a neat idea. This part of the video is related to getting ready to actually do your sewing. So when you get ready to start, you need to set your stitch length at 2 or less than 2, so it'll make nice small stitches. Makes it easier for the paper to tear out. The next thing you'd like, if you want to use it, is to use your leftover bobbins from other projects that you've used. That's a good way to clean those out. Then you want to take your strips, and I cut mine in 23 inches, and that was pretty good length. And a jelly roll strip is 45 inches, so that helps you if you decide you're going to do a project related to a jelly roll quilt. And then I cut 6 of those strips so that as I was going I could chain stitch, and that really makes it go faster. And so I don't have to dig around and decide what fabrics I want to use. I've got a bench in the kitchen. This is where I'm going to be working, is in the kitchen. And I've sorted some of the pieces, and I sort them into light, medium, dark, and then I've got some novelty prints on the end. And then out of my baskets, I'd also pulled some squares, so I've got some 3.5-inch squares, and I can cut those down to fit, and even some strips in a bucket. That gives me a lot of variety for getting ready to start.
Yep.
This is the first strip that I'm going to start with, and I've taken one patch and laid it face up on the paper, and then I've taken another one that I just randomly picked and lay it on there to get ready. And if you like to pin it, you get where you don't have to pin it, and slide the paper in, and you're going to be working from left to right, and it'll get shorter and shorter naturally on the right. And I just like, you can do a 1/4 inch seam, or you can do an 1/8 inch, because you're just going to fold that seam over, and that's why I thought maybe with less would be better. And that would be the first strip, and then you could take it off and you get ready to do the next strip. So I'm going to pretend like I'm going to keep going with my chain stitching, and I already have another one that's ready. I have the 2 that I started with, and I've picked up another piece of fabric, and it's bigger than the tape, and that's great because you're going to take and cut that off later. I'd use a straight edge and not just the scissors, because it makes it a really nice edge. And then go ahead and stitch the next one on. If you put the papers in your lap, that's a great way to keep them organized. Even some of the time, a lot of the time, I didn't even have the fabrics already on there. Although I found out that that was sort of kind of nice to get them set up and then just stitch them and then just do the next one and keep going. So let's say I've done the end, and I'm going to go up here and I'm going to cut everything off but the first one, because that way I don't have to waste thread. I'm going to get these, and you can do 2 things now. You have a choice. You can either finger press it open, and it depends on your fabric. If you've got a heavy fabric, you probably want to have the iron, which I've got to have here on the table. And I'm going to turn another one back. And this one I did notice is pretty wide. But I don't want to keep pulling scraps that are like that, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut part of it off. Again, don't trim it real close, because you're going to be able to do that with your ruler when you get finished. And so then I just sit here and I go, okay, well, let's see, what would be something I want to put? And sometimes it doesn't even matter. So I went this time and I picked up a fabric that looks like, I kind of like that with that brown. So I'm going to set it on there. And on this case, I'm just going to cut off the end. No fancy cutting. And then this one would be ready to go, and then I'd go on to the next one and I'd press. And when you get all the way finished, you'll have a nice long strip. And you'll take it to the cutting board and turn it over so you can see the paper side, and then just cut right along the edge. Now, if you're not going to be using it for a while, one of the people that I saw suggested that you go down along the edge of your paper and do a running stitch across there. And that, if you're worried about the stitches coming apart at the ends, then that would help too, but keep it close to the end and it's going to come out. So, there are a lot of things you can do with those jelly rolls. I hope somebody got a little bit of idea what they could do. Happy stitching, and don't forget to use those novelty fabrics that you have, because they really can make those projects look really cute. This is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching.